All right. Seeing everybody hop on here. Everybody's getting ready for the summer. We were just talking about how much things have changed from, the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the industry when there used to be printed MLS books. So we always find that to be a little bit comical here. So, we see everybody piling in. Let's just go ahead and kind of get started, give ourselves plenty of time. And again, we do have the Q&A open for everybody if you want to take a look at that. Have any questions you want to leave for us the last 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to have for all of you to get to all of our questions that you want to ask. So my name is Mark Neuterman. If you've been attending these, thank you for coming back here on the real estate referral. I have two of my favorite and most incredible humans here with me, Denise Freed and Michelle Lee. So instead of me speaking for you, I'm going to go ahead and just start off and ask for a brief introduction. Denise, I'm going to go ahead and go to you. So who are you and what's your position at Compass? And let's kick this off.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Denise Freed. I am a managing director at Compass in SoCal. I oversee the West region, which comprises pretty much Pacific Palisades down to Palos Verde, so all along the coast. I've been with Compass I joined in 2016 when there were only 80 agents in SoCal as an agent, and have been doing this management now for almost in 2 more days, it'll be 6 years.
It's amazing. Before we move on, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on? So you're in the Santa Monica office, but you oversee SoCal, a lot of other things. So what's happening in the market there currently? I know we're going into summer, but what are you seeing?
Well, our market got hit pretty hard by a mansion tax that went into effect last April. So any sales over $5 million just got hit heavy with taxes that were meant to go into a housing fund to help the homeless issues we have in LA. What that did, though, is it caused a 57% decline in sales year over year, over $5 million. So in the lead up to this mansion tax, the prior 12 months, we had 276 sales over $5 million. And since then, we've only had about 114. That was as of March. So our luxury market got hit pretty hard, and we are a luxury market. So Santa Monica in particular, our average sales price for single family homes is something around $3.8 million. So there's a lot of high end in Pacific Palisades, all over the place that got hit pretty hard.
Wow. Okay. No, thank you so much for that. Michelle,
Hi
tell us
there.
about
My
you.
name
Where
is,
where are you? What's your position? Where are you
yeah.
located?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Michelle Lee, and I do manage in NorCal, pretty much the East Bay area, locally, the Danville office, which is a suburb about 60 minutes east of San Francisco. And I have been a sales manager with Compass. I was former mergers and acquisition with Paragon Real Estate Group. We were acquired in 2018, one of three M&As that happened up here in NorCal. And our market lately has been hit with the high fire risk that really over the past year has really been challenging for our agents in our region, getting insurance. You know, our price ranges range anywhere from the $1 million, $1.3 million up to $6 million on average, just where it is, and all price points were getting hit with the inability to get fire insurance. So a little bit about our market.
And then going into the summer months, I mean, do things slow down there or things are getting a little bit more mellow for the summer?
Yeah, very cyclical here. We've always had a cyclical market. I call it highly transient areas, but I mean that in a good way. Relocation has always been something. The families move here for the great schools. That keeps our values high in our area. And so typically our slow time, we're getting ready in June with the graduation, the change out, will be slow for the summer typically, and then pick up before all the holidays and then back in it. So
Okay. Awesome. All right. So Michelle, let's dig in on this. So how long have you been in the industry total?
let's see. I was licensed in 1993.
Okay.
Are you
Wow.
doing the math? Don't do math. So, okay. So I sold for 14 years, but now I've actually managed for 17. I was a bit surprised when I had to go back and look at that stat. I was like, oh my word.
Wow.
Um, and I think that for me, I mean, the management part, I started actually when I went over into management, I started as an operations manager and a risk manager before I went into sales leadership.
Okay. So in terms of, something that I really, really love about this is both of you had extensive sales careers prior to managing.
Sorry.
And, one thing for many of us that we see is, it's managing is a completely different beast, but you take so many of the lessons that you learned prior coming into it. Michelle, do we have you back with us? Okay, so I'd love to hear a little bit
Yes. Can you
more
hear me?
about,
Sorry.
yep, no, no problem. Love to hear more about your sales career. How much of it was based on referral business?
So for me, I will tell you just naturally, and then I'll go back. So naturally, I think sales, um, where I really live now is in sales management. And I think that is actually where I should have been living. When I first started in real estate, um, it was hard. And I realized that for me, the only way that I was going to be successful was that it was 100% referral from the very beginning for me. It was because of my more natural introverted personality. Open houses were not easy for me. I could not make one conversion on open house. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's true. And so, but if I could sell to one person in a family, I had probably over 12 sales with one family because I sold to everyone within their family. So for me, it was a referral based 100%. And to this day, now here I am not selling, they still call me. So that tells you that for me, that was my strong suit, is that I could convert one and then convert their entire family. So it was 100% referral in that regard.
I love that. I see some of the names on the call, fellow introverts. I'm an introvert, right? And so sometimes it's different things. For some folks, it's knocking on doors, it's being out in public. And for some folks, once you get that one in and you get that one closing, then all of their entire network come to you. Denise, when did you come into the industry?
Oh, I came in 1989. 22 years old, no clue. I was a travel agent and I was like, this is how I decided to go into real estate. 6% or 3% of somebody's trip or 3% of somebody's house. I think the house is better. And then I quickly realized that none of my friends had any money and I had no credibility. So I starved my first year. I think I sold like 3 houses. And then I went to work as an assistant for a top team in the nation.
Mm.
Back then, they were one of the only teams in the nation. So these ladies were speaking at NAR and CAR and all over the place for Howard Brenton and all these trainers, Mike Ferry, blah, 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 as being a team, which was unusual. And I worked for them for I think around the next 7 years. In that role, I was their assistant. I was their TC. I was their buyer's agent. I was their team manager when we got bigger and had other people on the team. So I was kind of the go-between between them and the rest of the staff. And then when my daughter turned 5, I wanted to be able to pick her up from school and be a mom. So I went out on my own. And at one point I became a partner. So I'm a terrible partner. I'm a much better leader than I am a partner. I do not like coming to consensus with a bunch of people. I just know that about myself. I don't care what size the font is, just get stuff out, right? Like, I was at CB, I was an assistant manager. I was at KW, I was a team leader. I was part of their ALC for 10 years. And then when I got here, I was principal team leader of a team of 5, including my daughter, 2 buyer's agents, and a commercial agent. And we joined Compass in 2016. And then I kind of got roped into management. But the thing is like I've always been interested in management. I've always been interested in the bigger picture and putting the big puzzle pieces together. So when I joined, for instance, KW, I paid for myself to go to Austin, Texas, and take all of these classes about being an owner or a team leader, or I was exploring all the leadership paths because no matter what, no matter what you're doing, you're a leader, right? And so that's always been important to me. So yeah, that's I've been down this road for a long time. But I think that what that does for certainly some of my agents is it brings a sense of credibility to my role, in that I understand. I understand not only what it's like to have the paper thrown at me, like as an assistant, but I know what it's like to throw the paper, right? Like I know what it's like to do all of these things. And it's hard. It is a, plate spinner at the circus on every given day when you wake up. And so I think because I bring that sense of empathy and understanding to my role, I'm able to connect with people in a pretty nice and meaningful way.
So on that, when you talk about some of these different roles, so for instance, you were with one of the first teams, right? Then you were a team leader. So you've been in different positions with different teams. When we were to, like, let's just say we put that in terms of referral business, whether it's agent to agent referrals, whether it's client referrals, whether it's vendor referrals. What have you seen, or are there any specific strategies or tactics that you've seen across the board that were particularly effective, we'll say?
So when I was an agent, over 80% of my business was referral. And my coach at that time was pretty heavy on door knocking and cold calling, and I was having none of that. So for me, and that coach has since gone into the CRM world like everybody else, because when anybody sources their business, you'll realize it's mostly repeat and referral business, right? And even if you pick up an open house lead or a whatever lead, most of it comes from somebody else that whether they're in real estate or outside of real estate. And so what I'm seeing with the referrals, agents who, okay, this is one of my pet peeves. I'll go to a big event and some agent will come up to me and hand me a business card and introduce themselves and move on. And then I'm just watching them hand out business cards or leave business cards or leave, it's basically litter all over everyone's table without making any connections. And so what I advise, I had an agent come to me the other day about being part of the sports and entertainment division and how it's kind of saturated our market is with those agents. And I suggested that she really look at the roster, find people who do business like she does business, and connect with maybe 3 people, not the whole thing. And I think going to any retreat or going to any kind of networking event is especially important to find the people that you can connect with and connect with them. You don't need to meet 3,500 people. You need to meet 5 or 10 meaningful conversation people. And that is where those referrals start blossoming. So I do see one of my top agents in the market right now, Ryan Jankula, who's been on fire. He is making the most of doing all of this referral work. And so he's, when there's an opportunity, we hosted a luxury retreat. He hosted the opening happy hour, which I'm sure cost him a lot of money, but he made a lot of connections. He goes to Rome, he goes to any Compass thing that he can go to. And he is purposeful in making those connections with people who do business in the same price point and around the same volume that he does, because people are comfortable, especially if you're looking for other agent referral, they want to be comfortable with the level of
Think-
production that you have, or that they know it's similar production, right?
Yep. Yep. So, that is spot on. So for folks who have asked, the real estate referral, that's the concept behind it, is that, when you're introduced with others, that you have relatability, you have commonality, you have things that are there, it's that much more likely that this might or maybe not be somebody that you're going to do business with, right? And I learned, starting out very young at 18, always take a conversation. Always take a converse. You never know what's going to come from a conversation. You never know what's going to come from some sort of connection. And in fact, when I think about how I met both of you and how I've met a lot of the people that I see on this call, and I was wearing different hats. I was in a sales career. I was in a managing career. I was, doing coaching. And so there's many different things that it might be. Michelle, for you, you've got optics into some really major hitters there up in the East Bay, exceptional price points up there. What are you seeing in terms of some of your agents that might be very effective with strategies?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because connections for some may not be such an easy thing to make. We use that word, we say make the connections, it's part of the referral network. But I think that connection starts with the person, right? So if starting even just using myself as an example, having to learn what my strengths are, right, in order to connect with someone, right? How to earn their trust. And that's something that we can talk about all day long, but whether or not someone actually does that, across the table from someone. So when I look at some of the agents that are really good at that, they have an innate ability, either developed or something that they've, kind of have worked on in order to establish that trust and confidence, whether it's through their knowledge, through their price point, putting themselves out there. They work on their craft. They have mentors, they have coaches. These are all behaviors. And even for myself, as we said, naturally introverted, what are the ways that we can bring out what that strength is if it's not an innate talent? You can read books. I read books. Quiet is one on how to bring out that introverted self, right? Grit. If I'm feeling a little less on my ability to move it forward, those are things that I would look at. So when I look at the top agents in the industry who are making those connections, it's because they've created that level of confidence in order to put themselves out there, and that curiosity to grow it. It's just they're out there doing it.
You know, when we talk about the overall concept of kind of these like one-on-one conversations, right? So for instance, when you look at these networking events, that card, right? Here's the card. I'm Bob from Boston. Bob sells Boston. I'm Sally from Seattle. Sally sells Seattle, right? And it's just this kind of very impersonal thing that goes on. When you think about it from a lens of relatability, Denise, you have been involved in a lot of different groups in real estate. What kind of relatability do you feel like you could share in terms of just overall, what kind of just feels more personal to you?
So, I am not shy about talking about my recovery. And so I've been in a 12-step program, few 12-step programs for 38 years now. And so for one, when COVID first happened, I realized once I realized we were not home for 2 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad, right? I started a meeting online, a Zoom meeting for basically anybody who was in recovery. And so it didn't matter, specifically for Compass, right? And it didn't matter what part of recovery you were in, whether you were an addict, an alcoholic, an Al-Anon, a gambler, a food, whatever your thing is, there was a place where we could meet, right? And that meeting's been going on now for 4 years. Like we still have that meeting. And not only that, but then I blew my anonymity across the board. And how I did that was I blew my anonymity through Leonard's email. And, that's not an easy thing to do because there's still a lot of stigma around, addiction. And for me, my sobriety is my superpower. So I have no shame around it at all. It allowed me to have a very amazing spiritual life. And so I blew my anonymity. We grow this meeting. Now I'm doing it at retreats, right? And so even coming up to the retreat in Charlotte, there's no sales managers there because there's no sales manager content, but they want me to come and do my meeting because it's so meaningful for the people there. Now those people connect on a whole nother level. Like this little room full of people, and it's not that little, there's probably 50 to 70 people at any given meeting, really connect not only on just being in real estate, but all the insecurities and all of the things that happen going into an environment that is like that, right? Where there's so much drinking, there's so much partying, there's a reason everybody bellies up to the bar at any given event, and it's to bring the anxiety down. Everyone has social anxiety, like a news break. Everyone has it. And so like the thing is like if you're in recovery, you don't have that little kind of buffer. And so what happens is now all of these people connect with each other. At the last one, there was somebody who signed up and had one day. And you know what? Everyone around him, the whole groups like took this guy in, and it was like day one guys got day two, two guys got day three, came to the meeting, brought the wife. Like it was a beautiful thing to watch everyone come around and help these people. And so I do that. That was a long answer to that thing, but I also, at the beginning of COVID started this like 10 by 10 thing where we were calling 10 people a day at 10 o'clock every day, 5 days a week. And it was just like, all right, check on people. Everybody's home. You always say they're never answer a call, but guess what? Everyone's home right now and they have nothing to do but get on each other's nerves, and they're going to be happy for the distraction. So we did that. But in terms of connecting and I pay for myself to go to these retreats, right? Like Compass doesn't pay for me to go. I pay for my own airfare. I've always been interested in connecting and learning from what other people are doing. And so what are the best of the best people? I'm going to assume that that also the sales managers who are paying to go to the retreat are also not of a scarcity mindset, that there's enough to go and learn and be better. And so I want to seek out those people who, no matter what the market is doing, are seeking to improve and to grow. And so I just always look for those people. And you'll find this hard to believe because I do talk so much, but listening is a big deal. Like, so when I listen and I hear something that somebody says, I'm able to connect when I see this agent over here who I know is an equestrian, and I see this agent over there who I've just learned is an equestrian. And now I'm putting these two people together who are equestrians and can talk on a whole level that I don't understand and who are happy to meet each other, right? And so I'm always listening for where can I connect the dots of anybody? And it's whether it was a client in real estate and I would Google everybody and find out what they were interested before I met them so I could maybe find some connection. I'm always looking for connection. That's the only thing I'm looking for. And once I have that, then we have the trust that Michelle was talking about. Then I can really talk about what I'm going to do for them, because until then they don't trust me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those points when you take a look at, I remember going into Christmas last year, I was telling some of my clients, I said, look, even if you don't have homes to sell, right? Even if there's no transactions happening, you can be introducing people to one another. So when you do your happy holidays, Merry Christmas, you're calling somebody, ask them, is there anybody you're looking to meet? Is there anybody, maybe your kids are trying to get involved in the entertainment industry? Maybe you're trying to find somebody to do work on the home. But leveraging your network and always be introducing other people together is one of the best ways to stay top of mind. And, when you talk about that meeting, so I too am a part of that 12-step meeting, very, very proudly, very openly. Denise and I go way back when I was an agent in San Francisco, and I was looking at the sales manager track, and she was up on a trip. Very randomly, we bumped into each other. She was one of my interviews. I moved down to Manhattan Beach, become a sales manager. She's my managing director. Then we connect into this recovery meeting. So this is what I'm, and now here we are in 2024 on May 28th, and I'm so privileged to have you both on here sharing your insights. And it's just, this is where these connections constantly move forward. Michelle, in terms of some of the different connections you have at Compass, some of the different groups, how have you leveraged that personal relatability? You're involved in a lot. I mean, there's almost every project up in NorCal, every event that goes on. I feel like you are spearheading all of it. So can you please touch on that?
Yeah. First of all, Denise, thank you for sharing that story. It was so touching about your ability to meet with a group of agents and really bring value to them. So, that's something that is truly admirable and really giving of your time. So I can fully appreciate that. So, at Compass, there's lots to do, and you can't be shy about raising your hand when you feel there's something that you want to be a part of and that you want to fix or that you want to be instrumental in developing. And I think that's what I love about Compass from day one. Um, so running the Agent Advisory Council for NorCal,
Mhm.
50 offices, organizing that brain trust. And really, it's about solving problems. So that's kind of my superpower that I love. Agents will tell me story upon story upon story. And what I'm looking for to help solve that problem is the parts that are meaningful and to reduce that down into something where I can spit it back to them that makes sense.
Mhm.
Right. And so I find myself leaning into groups or projects that where I have to solve a problem. Um, and that's kind of my happy place. And that's kind of what I will raise my hand about, 10 times over. But I think the more meaningful part on my day-to-day relationship and connections with agents is I could probably go down the roster of about 200 of my agents, and I can probably tell you exactly or close to what they're doing. Just because we have to be available. We have to know what's happening. We find out about what's happening because either A, we're completely approachable, text, email, walk in, deal doctoring, signing documents, all of that. So I feel that, every day I come to work, I'm learning about others. And so being able to know at the drop of a hat if you were to call me, Mark, and say, "Hey, who are the top 3 agents or 3 agents that work in this particular neighborhood that have this in their background, they want this," I would be able to tell you almost off the top of my head. And that's because there's a vested interest, right, in learning and knowing and asking and listening, all the things that Denise said as well when she's talking to people.
So for anybody on this call, let me just say this. Having been a former sales manager, having 2 exceptional leaders here, your sales managers, especially at Compass, I've said it on other calls, care so much. And I just think it's tough because sometimes you get so busy and there's so much going on. Like you said, it might be hundreds of agents, you're working on projects, other things. Can each of you speak to just building a personal relationship with the agents? And I always used to tell my agents, like, hey, even if I seem busy, I'm never too busy for you. And a part of my coaching was always ask your sales manager to coffee, go get lunch, sit down, have a conversation, because you're there to help them. And it's just, I see how much the managers care about the agents succeeding. Denise, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Um, so I think the thing is that we just pay attention, right? Like Michelle was talking about. The last week, we've got this new reporting system, and I decided I'm playing around with it. So I organized it by GCI year to date. Usually I do like last 12 months or last year, or I look at people's overall thing, but I wanted to see what people were doing, and I shockingly discovered that 3/4 of my roster are well under 100,000 in GCI this year, which some of them would be at 400,000 by this time.
Hmm.
Some people hadn't sold a house all year,
Wow.
quite a few actually, who are producing agents and will produce again. But I immediately flagged the ones who I know something's not right, and like booked time with them. And that's where we find out the other stuff, right? Like not everybody's wanting to call their sales manager and tell them what's going on at home, or whatever, right? Whether it's caring for an adult, for your parents, or whatever it is, but let's just say I have tissues in my office and they're used
Mm.
frequently, right? Because I feel like I'm also the therapist. I mean, people call me Mama Freed. That's my moniker in the like, that's my name. And people know I care about them, and also people know that I'm safe, right? I'm not going to go telling everybody your story. I'm not going to share it with anybody else, right? That's just between you and me. And how can I help you overcome whatever it is you need to overcome? And a lot of it is usually just mindset, and helping people kind of get back in the game, and figure out how to manage just the overwhelm of general life. And so, that was my most recent kind of aha moment, was like, oh, my agents are in trouble. And so, basically, I started a class last week, and we're starting out with The Science of Getting Rich. It's a silly little book, but it changed my life. I've read it. It's like 108 pages. You can download an MP3 for free anywhere. And it changed my relationship with money, and it changed how I thought about what I earn and how I earn it and all of that. And so right now we're working on mindset. And once we get everybody's mind back, then we can go tackle all the other stuff. But we can't tackle it while everybody's tail spinning. Right. So,
Oh my
and when
God.
I see those numbers, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Like that, we're in a tailspin.
Yeah.
Something's going on. Let's
Yeah.
get back in the game. Let's all get into abundance and prosperity and gratitude. And the world is my oyster. Let's go get it. Because I'll tell you something, the agents who are doubling down right now, when this market shifts, are going to knock it out of the park. Like,
100%.
no doubt. And
Yeah.
so now is not the time to put your head in the sand. And so I'm doing all I can to pull everybody's flamingo heads out of the sand, and let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Michelle, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think EQ is a huge part of our job. In order for Denise to do those things and to recognize that is, I think, you know, non-judgmental, having the open door, being a safe place, right? And reading the room. So, you're right. If the agents don't, and it's hard for the agents to come in and tell us about their personal life. It just is. And I don't expect them all to do that. Um, but they should also know that, when you're a realtor and you're in sales, your home life and your professional life are very commingled together. And, understanding that there's a lot of noise that could be going on in the background, and having that be okay, right? And allowing that to come into the conversation. And then as a sales manager, knowing when is the right time to maybe suggest or help them pivot, because it's not a one size fits all. You cannot manage from a place of making them all the same. And actually, that's the beauty, I think, in this business that is, I find so gratifying and interesting, is that we get to work with people of all different personalities and all different types of situations. And so for me, still making that order out of some chaos, but knowing when to take your foot off the pedal, so to speak, a little bit, and to just sit and listen and allow the conversation to happen, right? That is where I think a lot of trust and loyalty is established.
I love that. And listen, from my own experience, excuse me, let me just say comparison is the thief of joy. And we all know that. And I'll never forget, and this is a true story. One day I was in my office, I was a sales manager at the time, Manhattan Beach, and I had an agent come in tears. And business had been very, very slow for about 3 months. And this agent referenced another agent. They're doing amazing. They're knocking it out of the park. They're closing deals left and right. Why can't I do what they're doing? A few hours later, the agent they referenced came into my office in tears. Oh my goodness, everything is so slow. I haven't closed anything. Now, everybody in real estate, you're in the business of optics and you want to appear successful. And that's where sometimes we all have a really, we look at others and, oh my God, they're succeeding and I'm failing. But your manager kind of sees everything and is a neutral third party to sit and wants to actually help you. And that's where come in, have a conversation, show up, sit down, have the chat. I do want to pivot the conversation to some of the industry changes. Denise, you mentioned Tailspin. Here's a 30-year agents. Maybe some haven't sold a home this year. And, I've had plenty of clients, different folks that I've talked to. And when we look at this holistically, everybody, we had 13, 14 years of a positive market. Then we hit the pandemic and it wasn't reality, but the pendulum swung in one direction and things were insane. And I remember some agents who all of a sudden are like, I did 100,000 GCI last year. I just did over 1 million. I want a private jet. I want 4 private offices. I want all this stuff. And I thought, okay, maybe, let's see what happens in 1 or 2 years because the pendulum is going to swing in the other direction, which is what happened. Now, a lot of the changes that we've seen with NAR, some of these other things happening, that's a little bit of a pivot in addition to the market, which was slow last year. So, Denise, I'm going to start with you. What do you suggest to everybody on the call in terms of what should they be focused on as we get into the next 6 or 12 months with some of the industry changes?
So back to my final thought on that last one is don't put your head in the sand. You need to be a victor and not a victim, right? So by taking action in a positive way, kind of, and continually to build on that, will help anybody, right? So, I think the first thing to do is get rid of the fear, right? Because we read Inman, they're hitting us through 5 times a day with, now it's gonna the DOJ, right? And so like, I can, whatever, like, I started in real estate and then 8 months in, the savings and loans fell apart. Like, I mean, I've been through a bunch of stuff and guess what? I'm still here, right? And so I can choose to buy into the hype or I can make my own market, right? And that's how it is. So for me, I would say what I would recommend and what I am recommending is that everybody just put your head down and talk to people who need to move no matter what the market's doing. There are people who have job changes. There are people who are having babies. There are people who are empty nesters who don't want to take care of that big old house anymore. There are people who need to, like for all the reasons that people need to move, those are the people we need to find and those are the people we need to help. And we'll figure out our conversations around how to charge for it. We have enough. I mean, we have a huge brain trust. The good news is we're at Compass, right? So we're with the best of the best. I'm really glad I'm not at a pay by the month company right now because that they're gonna the herd is getting cold and that's the first stop is with the people who don't know what they're doing. The bad news of a market, and this is my, I think, 4th time I've been through a market, or 4th or 5th, where it's kind of, gonna shift. Who's left? are really good. And so you better sharpen your pencil and you better get on track and you better be smart about your business and you better know what you bring to the table. And so if that's scary to you, then the only way to get through it is to learn what it is that makes you different. Learn what it is why do people hire you? Maybe ask your clients, why did you hire me? Find out what it is about you that makes you you, and then find the people who are looking for you, because we're not all looking for everybody, right? We're looking very specific people who we feel we can trust and will help us when we need it. And then I would say you have to reach out. Like there's no secret. This is not time for being a secret agent. Like you have to over touch everybody. I would say everybody in your CRM needs at least 36 touches from you a year, at least. And that's in all the different ways, in their mailbox, snail mail, email, social media, phone calls, lunches, like all the ways that you touch people. Because this is the funny thing. Like an agent came into my office the other day and we did this whole likely to sell workshop at the Q4. And we're relaunching that as soon as everybody finishes this Science of Getting Rich book. And she came into my office. She's like, I got a likely to sell. You were right. They didn't call me back until they needed me. It's not because they hated me. It's because they didn't need me. And I'm like, yeah, but our heads go to worst case scenario. Oh, I left them 2 messages and they didn't call me back. I'm sure they're working with somebody else. No, they don't even know anybody else. You're the only one they can think of. So like, just keep doing what this is the other thing. Okay. Real estate hasn't changed in all of these years, in all of my years. And Michelle, I'm sure this is true for you, right? The basics are what get us through any market. It's not all the flash and it's not the awards and it's not the stuff. It is human connection and being in front of people so that when they have a need, you're the only person they can think of that can help them. And then they'll call you. That's it.
I love
That's
that.
it.
I love that, Michelle.
I love what Denise said. And I do agree. I think one of the first things that Denise said is the mindset. The mindset is, I think, so powerful, right? And it came up a couple of times when Denise was sharing the scenarios about what we think we hear, or what we are telling ourselves. Um, I think pacing yourself as an agent, there's a lot of noise out there, and sort of pacing yourself and keeping yourself ahead of the industry changes um, is huge in your ability to understand. Um, while these are changes, the reality is that as an agent, you have to be able to make those small pivots and correct. You're right. We're in company at Compass with really smart, talented agents who have worked in a myriad of markets that have been tough on different levels. And I think what gets them through those periods of change is their ability to somehow go back to the basics. And I mean that in a way that could be needs-based selling. When you talk to your client, like Denise said, when you talk to your client, it's not about you, it's about them. That hasn't changed in a gazillion years, right? No one wants to go into a conversation and just hear you talk. It's more about, what are you there for? So being able to, earn their trust and loyalty through needs-based questions and then listening and solving that problem is like gold, right? That's the golden ticket when you're in as a realtor. Um, the other thing I think is being able to connect with other agents as we all do. Compass provides a lot of avenues to do so, and including this as the real estate referral. We don't work in a vacuum. We shouldn't be working in a vacuum. And so learning from others in different avenues, whether it's social, um, or lunch and learns or retreats or events, you should be exposing yourself to as many of those events as possible so that you can learn and refer. And then lastly, practice, right? Practice what you preach. Um, I was watching the final Celtics game last night, and after they won their game, they did a full sweep. One of the players, I think it was Derek White, they were asking him about, how he felt about that game. Why was that game so pivotal for him? And he said, there was something he said, it was, it starts with confidence at practice. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love that. Well, first you have to practice, but the confidence should start at the practice, right? And it doesn't come overnight. So
Can I add one more thing to I think people don't have enough people in their CRM, and I'm not talking about having 3,500 people. I'm talking about having like the people in there who have the possibility of doing business with. So I know we talked about this when we were meeting before this thing, and there was a cousin. I'm going to just give this example because I want you to think broader, because most people think CRM, it's past clients, current clients, some family members, and that's it. But maybe they forget their husband's best friend, right? Maybe they forget. So this woman who is my husband's cousin, who I saw twice a year. My father-in-law brought her over from Russia. She didn't speak any English when she got here 30 something years ago. See her twice a year. We only talk about movies and food and kids and what you talk about at family dinners, right? And then she said at one dinner, hey, you know, I made partner at my firm, at CPA firm. I was like, amazing. I know how hard that is, right? How many clients do you had? She said 5. And I was like, okay. So I was like, would you mind if I add you to my real estate database? She says, of course. I put her in there. I drip on her for 6 months. She calls me out of the blue. Hey, one of my clients is selling a property in New York. Do you know any agents in New York who could handle the sale of a brownstone? And I was like, absolutely. And I ended up with a $25,000 referral fee. And this is over 10 years ago, right? So, I mean, it's like, and then she referred another property, and it was like right after I joined Compass, and I had met Dominique Duke at the retreat, and I referred it to her, right? Like, and so, you know, all of these things just start coming together. But I asked for her to be there, but I also was listening enough to realize somebody that has 5 clients is dealing with very high net worth people who are going to buy and sell no matter what the market's doing, because they're paying cash for everything. And so having her in that sphere, she ended up giving me millions of dollars in referrals. And I'll tell you another thing. When she went to go buy a house during the pandemic and she asked if my team could help her, I knew she wasn't going to get that house because it was listed by a one guy thing. And I was like, the only way you're getting this house with 20 offers on it is if you give that guy the business. Like he's got to double end it, or you're not going to get it. I can't help you. I knew that was going to be the case. And she got the house, right? Like, you know, and sometimes you gotta make a sacrifice to do what's right for the client. She gave me millions of dollars worth of business, and what was right was telling her how to get to her next house so she could get out of her condo that was making her crazy during the pandemic, right? So
Everything is focused on the client, you know, and I think when we're talking about these conversations, when you think about a referral partner, so many times people scramble, right? And I've asked so many different folks, hey, you're in LA, do you have somebody in Miami? I don't know anybody. What about Atlanta? I don't know anybody. So we have data, we have migration reports. We know a lot of people are going from LA to Miami or Orlando, Jacksonville, and you don't have any agents over there. So what happens, worst case scenario, if one of your clients ended up with a bad referral partner? Now, as managers, or as a former manager and 2 current, we know what that looks like when something goes sideways. And we get the call and you come to find out this was a bad match, but the referral happened because an agent scrambled, didn't know anybody in that area, just found somebody, referred a client, and it was a terrible, terrible match. So we never want that, right? The other thing to kind of think about is you want your name floated out. I've seen a lot of folks say, well, do I have a referral to give right now? Or do they have a referral to give me? Denise, think about the story you just shared in terms of long term, where even it's, hey, might have to be double ended. But I remember in 2018 when I was a agent in San Francisco and I went to the retreat in DC. There was 800 of us at the time at the Lion Hotel in Washington, DC, real intimate. It was a perfect opportunity for us to be very close, get to know each other. And I received multiple referrals not just from the folks that I got to know. And these were the sit down, have dinner, go get drinks, hang out, really get to know each other. But it was they were in the office talking to somebody 3 months down the road who said, "Do you have somebody really good out in San Francisco?" And they referred or gave my name at that time. And so when we think about it, it's not just this current in the moment, it's the overall getting your name, getting your reputation, getting the exposure long term. Going back to where we're at in this industry, you know, a lot of folks have talked about everyone's leaving, which to your point, a lot of things haven't changed, basics haven't changed. We've all gone through multiple down markets. What's the best way for the professionals, right? Often we hear about what are the top agents doing, right? What are the very top? Are there any differentiators that you see? Michelle, I'm going to start with you in terms of some of your very top agents for what they're doing right now to prepare.
Um, they are and continuously have invested in themselves and in their business,
Yep.
staying visible in front of their clients. A couple of them told me that during the pandemic, they may have taken their foot off the gas pedal. They maybe weren't as visible because they thought, for whatever reason, whatever was happening in the market, little do we realize we didn't know what we knew. But then the aha moment came across. And so investing in themselves, which really hasn't changed, but really doubling down on that. I think that they're also, um, investing in themselves when it comes to other agents. In other words, attending networking events. I know that that's top of mind now because what they realize a lot of their business is coming from different markets. That may or may not have been the case, but I think with the Compass Network, it's extremely powerful. And so for that reason, you can't ignore it. And then again, you know, when I talk to these agents about their situations and their sales with their clients, they're telling me great stories about their transactions. And I love that because what that tells me is that the people they're working with, they're genuinely invested with them. And it's not just transactional, right? They get to know these families. I look at their posts. I look at all the referral business that they get, which by the way, it's for these agents, it's almost 100% referral. So minding that.
Denise?
I think what Michelle said is right. Every top agent right now is doubling down and figuring out how best to position themselves in this market. And so, I'd say, having a coach, somebody with your thumb in your back. If you can't do coaching, then go to your sales manager and have them put their thumb in your back. Which I do. I meet with agents like biweekly, sometimes once a month, just to keep them accountable. I would say the single best thing that I ever did, and this is the only time I haven't had an assistant, is in this role as a manager at Compass, but hiring an assistant, a good assistant, will double your business. It forces you to get up and show up and dress and get into the office and do the work, right? It makes you accountable in a way that nothing else does, because now all of a sudden you have to pay this salary, right? And paying that salary allowed me to be a mom. It allowed me to drive on the field trips. It allowed me to do the other things, which is what I need to be doing, which is interacting with people, not sitting behind managing my CRM. Like I can make the calls from the CRM, but hand me a list of who to call and I'll write the notes and I'm handing it back to you so you can put it back in there and tell me when to call them again. I don't want to do any of that. Right. And so utilizing the systems we have is amazing, but it requires like hours. And if you're not going to do it yourself, then you need to hire somebody to do that. And I think right now, I know it's scary. It's always been scary. And people are like, oh, I don't have X amount of dollars. I'm like, well, first of all, you're not spending that whole amount right now. You're spending it over time. And if they're a great assistant, they'll double your business. And if they're not doubling your business, then you need to let them go right away because they're not going to work out. Right. And so, but not everybody's set up to be a boss either. So it's a tricky situation. I would say, you know, there are agents who were out of the office and because of the market are now coming back into the office, and deals are being made at the snack counter again, right? And so I think there's something to be said for suiting up, showing up and going to work, and then you're here and you have to work. So like if you don't have showings and you don't have stuff, come in here and make your calls, come in here and do your thing, come in here and talk to other people, find out what they're doing. There is so much there's so much value in human interaction. And I think what has happened for a lot of people is COVID dulled our ability to connect and communicate with each other. It put a big scare, like people don't know how to meet face to face anymore. And the more that you can build that skill, I think the better you'll be, because there are so many people who are still hiding behind their screens and not coming out of their houses. And you need to get out and be with people. I mean, we are even if you're an introvert, it's still nice to hear community laughter. It's nice to hear my staff telling silly stories amongst each other. It's nice to like share a meal at the table. And so, and also real estate can be really lonely. If you're you're the top of the heap, like find other top people, or find people who are producing at the level you're at and be honest with them. Like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What's going on? I mean, I had always had somebody to check in with, whether that was another mom who had young kids who was producing at the level I was producing at. Like, where are you finding the pediatrician? What are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? Right? Whatever your situation is, there's somebody else who's also in that situation. Find them and connect with them. And it's nice. And you won't feel so alone, and you won't feel so like I'm the only person who's experiencing this, because you're not. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not the only one who's having a little bit of a rough time right now. It's happening across the board. Even if you're at the top of your game, there are people here who are at the top of their game who are joining forces because they have to beat out the competition right now, right? And there's stuff going on where it's like, all right, we're getting into strategy. We're getting into, like, right now, if you're not busy, build your systems,
Bingo.
build your network, stay on top of your CRM, like, because when the wave comes back, if you don't have those systems in place, you can't even catch all the fish. Like, it's going to flow through your net. So now is the time to get buttoned down and get on purpose and get on
There is
track.
no difference between a sports team that prepares before the game, the military that prepares before combat, and real estate if things are slow. And for many, I know on this call, when things are slow and you're just like, I don't have a lot going on, and then you're busy and you think, oh my God, I want to organize this and build this and hire this and do all this. Problem is, how are you going to train the assistant if now you're slammed going after meeting after meeting after meeting, right? So use the time wisely. We're just about at time. I want to say, Denise, Michelle, thank you both so much for being here and sharing your insights with everybody. It was fantastic. Everybody, thank you for sharing your time and showing up today. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you soon.